Welcome to Monk's Temple. I want you to consider something with me, a simple fact so obvious we walk right past it a million times a day. You are here. In this moment. Reading these words. Before we go anywhere, before we try to become anything, let's just acknowledge that fundamental reality. Wherever you are, a bustling city apartment with sirens singing in the distance, a quiet suburban room with the hum of a refrigerator, a car parked somewhere waiting, you are here. Your body is in a specific posture. The air has a certain temperature. There are sounds, near and far, that form the soundtrack of this singular point in time and space. For the next few hours, we're not going to try to transcend this. We're going to learn to inhabit it. Fully, kindly, and with a curiosity that might just reveal that everything you've been seeking is already woven into the fabric of this ordinary, extraordinary now. We often think of peace as a destination. A place we get to when we finally solve all our problems, when the bank account is full, the relationships are perfect, and the mind is silent. We see it on the horizon and we run toward it, a frantic marathon through our days. But what if peace isn't a distant horizon? What if it's the ground beneath your feet? What if, in your desperate sprint toward some imagined calm, you're running right over the very thing you want? Tonight, we're going to stop running. We're going to sit down, metaphorically and perhaps literally, right where we are. We're going to explore ancient maps of the human heart, from Buddhist wisdom to modern neuroscience, and simple, direct practices that don't require special cushions, robes, or beliefs. All that's required is your attention, just as it is, and a willingness to experiment. Think of this not as a lecture, but as a shared exploration. A long, meandering conversation under a wide sky. There will be stories. Some from Zen kitchens, some from neuroscience labs, some from my own stumbles and discoveries. There will be pauses to try things out. There is no test at the end. The only measure is your own lived experience. Does this way of looking, this way of being, bring a little more ease, a little more clarity, a little more kindness into the next moment? That's the only question that matters. So, let's begin at the only place we ever can, right here. Take a breath. Not a special, deep, meditative breath. Just your next breath. The one your body is already planning to take. Feel it come in. Feel it go out. In that cycle, there's a subtle, often missed point, the pause. The turning point at the top of the in-breath, and the still point at the end of the out-breath. These are thresholds. Doorways. For a fraction of a second, there is no doing, only being. No pulling in, no pushing out. Just presence. And then the cycle begins again. Our entire lives are like this. A constant flow of doing, achieving, thinking, worrying, the in-breaths and out-breaths of activity. And we completely miss the pauses. The spaces between. The New Year's Eve between one year and the next is just a giant, cultural version of this breath pause. It's a collective agreement to stop, if only for a night, and inhabit the threshold. But you don't have to wait for December 31st. That pause is available at the end of this breath. And the next. Our problem is that we are phenomenal time travelers, but we've lost the operator's manual. Our minds are not content to reside in this present moment body. They are constantly leaping backward and forward. I like to visualize this as two enormous buildings we are always commuting between. On one side is the Museum of Yesterday. It's a grand, solemn, echoing place. Its halls are lined with glass cases. In one, under a spotlight, is your greatest embarrassment, preserved in perfect, cringe-inducing detail. In another is the Golden Age, a diorama of a time when you believe everything was simpler, happier. There are wings dedicated to past relationships, to academic and career achievements and failures, to childhood memories both sweet and sore. We wander these halls constantly. We are the curators. We polish the glass, rewrite the placards, and give tours to ourselves. And over here, this is where I made the decision that ruined everything, or this is the moment I should have been happiest. The museum is a heavy place. The air is still and full of dust. It's a palace of finished stories. And then, because the silence of the museum can become oppressive, we flee across the plaza to the workshop of tomorrow. This is not a quiet place. It's a chaotic, deafening construction site. The air is thick with the sawdust of what if, and the acrid paint fumes of if only. Here, you are the frantic foreman. You're shouting over the noise, trying to read blueprints for a future happiness that keeps blowing off the drafting table. You're hammering together plans for security, nailing down contingencies, welding frameworks of control. You're trying to build a structure so perfect, so storm-proof, that it will finally allow you to relax. But the workshop is never finished. A new worry arrives as a delivery of faulty materials. A change in the weather demands a redesign. It's exhausting, loud, and fueled by anxiety. And between these two colossal, demanding institutions, the silent, heavy museum and the noisy, frantic workshop, there is a narrow alleyway. It's just the width of a single, present moment experience. This is where your life is actually happening. Right now. The sensation of your clothes on your skin. The pattern of light on the wall. The faint taste in your mouth. The sound of these words arriving in your mind. But we hardly ever visit the alleyway. We're always on duty, the curator of the past or the foreman of the future. We think our real life is in those buildings. But they are made of memory and imagination. They are thought forms. The alleyway is made of direct sensory reality. It's where the rain actually falls, not the memory of rain or the fear of a future storm. A neuroscientist once explained to me that this time travel is the brain's default mode. When we're not actively engaged in a task that requires focused attention, like solving a math problem or catching a ball, a network of brain regions called the default mode network, DMN, lights up. This is the circuitry of self-referential thinking, reminiscing, planning, daydreaming, worrying about how others perceive us. Evolutionary biologists suggest this was a monumental advantage. The primate who could remember where the water hole was last dry season, museum, and plan a route to avoid the leopard's territory next week, workshop, was more likely to survive. But in our modern world, where immediate physical threats are rare, this same machinery often turns on us. It defaults to chronic time travel, generating a continuous stream of comparative, judgmental, anxious, or nostalgic thought. We get lost in the mental buildings and forget we have a body in the alleyway, in the here and now. The Tibetan teacher Mingyur Rinpoche has a wonderful way of putting it. He says, the problem is not thinking. The problem is believing your thoughts are real and moving into them. We don't just have a thought about a past mistake, we move into that memory, we furnish it, we live in it, and we feel the shame as if it were happening now. We don't just have a thought about a future meeting. We move into the anxiety, we rehearse the disaster, we feel the stress in our present moment body. We are squatters in the thought-built structures of past and future, paying rent with our present moment peace. So, our first practice is simple. We are not going to burn down the museum or demolish the workshop. They have their uses. Memory teaches, planning helps. We are simply going to practice stepping into the alleyway. We are going to remind ourselves what it feels like to be here. For the next 60 seconds, your only task is to be a curious observer. Let's begin with sound. Close your eyes if that's comfortable, and just listen. Don't name the sounds. Instead, hear them as pure patterns of vibration. Notice their pitch, their texture, how long they last. Let them come and go like clouds in the sky of your hearing. Then, bring your attention to your body. Feel the points of contact. The pressure of the chair or floor against you, the weight of your clothes, the air temperature on your hands and face. Notice any areas of tension or ease without trying to fix them. And now, notice your breathing. Don't control it. Just feel the movement. The cool air entering your nostrils, the slight expansion of your chest or belly, the warmer air leaving. Find one small sensation of the breath, perhaps at the tip of your nose, and rest your attention there lightly. Now, when you inevitably find yourself pulled back into the museum or the workshop, don't get angry. That's just the default mode network doing its ancient job. Simply note to yourself, there's a trip to the museum, or, there's a planning session in the workshop. Acknowledge it kindly, and then gently guide your attention back to one single sensation in the alleyway of now, the feeling of your breath, or a sound, or the contact with the chair. Do this for 1 full minute. How was that? Perhaps peaceful. Perhaps frustrating. Maybe you felt bored. All of those responses are perfect data. They tell you about your current relationship with the present moment. This simple act of returning, again and again, to sensory reality is the foundational muscle of mindfulness. It's how we begin to re-inhabit our own lives. Let me tell you a story about this. It comes from a surprising place, the world of high-performance sports. A famous basketball coach was working with a player who was in a terrible shooting slump. The player was thinking too much. In games, he'd be at the free throw line, and his mind would be in the museum. I missed the last 3, and the workshop. If I miss this, the coach will bench me. He was everywhere but at the free throw line. The coach's advice was brilliantly simple. He told him, before you shoot, I want you to listen for one specific sound in the arena. The squeak of a sneaker on the court. Just one squeak. That was it. The player tried it. In that moment of focused, present moment listening, the museum and workshop faded. His mind cleared. He was back in the alleyway, the court, his body, the ball, the hoop. His shooting percentage dramatically improved. He wasn't trying to be a better shooter, he was practicing coming back to the present, and better shooting was the natural result. This is our work. Not to become perfect, but to become present. And from that presence, everything else, clarity, compassion, resilience, has the space to grow. We carry a silent assumption, a ghost in the machinery of our self-perception, that whispers a constant, corrosive question: am I good enough? This question fuels what I call spiritual perfectionism. It's the belief that inner peace, worthiness, and awakening are rewards for flawless performance. We think we must become serene, patient, and wise first, and then we will be allowed to rest. We approach our own hearts like a harsh schoolmaster grading an exam, marking every moment of irritation, every flicker of anxiety, every wandering thought as a failure. We believe the goal is to become a perfectly smooth, polished stone, worn free of all edges by the river of practice. But what if the river's purpose isn't to smooth you into sameness? What if its purpose is to reveal your unique, crystalline structure? What if your so-called flaws aren't mistakes in your design, but the very facets that catch and refract the light in a pattern no one else can? I want to introduce you to an ancient Japanese art form, kintsugi, which means golden joinery. When a cherished ceramic bowl, cup, or vase breaks, the master artisan does not discard it or try to hide the repair. Instead, they take a special lacquer, mixed with powdered gold, silver, or platinum, and use it to painstakingly put the pieces back together. The cracks are not concealed. They are highlighted. They become rivers of gleaming precious metal flowing across the surface of the object. The philosophy is profound: breakage and repair are part of the history of an object, not something to be disguised. The vase becomes more beautiful, more valuable, and more interesting because it was broken. Its vulnerability and subsequent repair become its most stunning feature. You are a living kintsugi masterpiece. Your cracks, the heartbreaks, the failures, the losses, the anxieties, the moments of shame, are not evidence of a defective vessel. They are the scenes where your life has been broken open and put back together by experience, by time, by your own resilient spirit. The gold is your awareness, your compassion, the wisdom you glean from the breaking. Trying to present yourself to the world, or to yourself, as an uncracked, perfect vessel is not only exhausting, it is a denial of your own authentic, rugged history. It is pretending to be a cheap, mass-produced replica when you are, in fact, a one-of-a-kind, handcrafted original, marked by the artistry of having lived. I learned a parallel lesson not from an artisan, but from a geologist friend in Arizona. We were hiking in the desert, and she picked up a seemingly ordinary, rusty red rock. "This is my favorite," she said. She explained it was jasper, a form of chalcedony. "Its color, this beautiful red," she said, pointing to swirling patterns, "comes from iron oxides. Essentially, from rust. From impurity." She went on. "The most common mineral in the world is quartz, clear, transparent, pure. And it's beautiful in its own way. But jasper, with all its flaws and impurities, creates these incredible, unique landscapes of color. The flaws are the beauty." She handed me the rock. It was warm from the sun, complex, undeniably beautiful. Your character is like that jasper. The impurities of your experience, the grief, the fear, the periods of confusion, aren't contaminants to be purified out. They are the pigments that give your spirit its distinctive, irreplaceable hue. This understanding dismantles the tyranny of spiritual perfectionism. When you sit to meditate and your mind is a riot of planning, remembering, and fantasizing, the perfectionist says, failure. You are a bad meditator. Look at all these thoughts. The kintsugi perspective says, the mind is active. These thoughts are the cracks in the clay of this moment. Can I meet them with the gold of kind attention, instead of the glue of harsh judgment? The goal shifts from achieving a perfectly quiet mind to learning the art of repair, the art of returning to presence, again and again, with patience and without condemnation. Modern psychology supports this through the concept of stress inoculation. Just as a vaccine introduces a weakened virus to build immunity, navigating manageable stressors and setbacks builds psychological resilience. A 2010 study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that individuals who had experienced a moderate number of adverse life events reported better mental health and life satisfaction than those with either very high or very low adversity histories. The researchers suggested that overcoming challenges can foster the development of coping skills, a sense of self-efficacy, and stronger social bonds. Your cracks, therefore, are not just scars. They are the very sites where your psychological immune system has been strengthened. They are proof you have been in the arena, not watching safely from the stands. Let's bring this from philosophy to direct experience with a practice. Think of a personal flaw or recurring struggle that causes you shame. It could be your quick temper, your tendency to procrastinate, a social anxiety. Let's work with it. First, identify the crack. Name it simply. You might say, the crack of impatience or the crack of self-doubt. Then, trace its origins with curiosity, not blame. Ask gently, how did this crack form? Did impatience arise in a chaotic childhood where you felt unheard? Did self-doubt blossom under critical teachers? This isn't to excuse harmful behavior, but to understand its roots with compassion. See it as a survival strategy that once served a purpose. Next, look for the gold. This is the crucial step. Ask, what has this crack taught me? What strength, empathy, or insight has formed along its seam? Perhaps your impatience has also given you a drive for efficiency. Perhaps your self-doubt has made you a more careful, considerate person. The gold is the wisdom extracted from the wound. Finally, reframe the narrative. Shift from, I am flawed because I am impatient, to, the seam of impatience in me has also been filled with the gold of passionate advocacy and a desire for clarity. This practice isn't self-indulgence. It's accurate seeing. It's moving from a story of being a broken product to recognizing yourself as a continuous, imperfect, beautiful process of breaking and repair. I witnessed this principle in action in a most unexpected setting, a beginner's pottery class in North Carolina. A woman was struggling terribly with her wheel. Her clay would wobble off-center. She'd apply too much pressure and tear through the wall of her vase. While others were making smooth, symmetrical cylinders, hers were lopsided, collared, thick in some places and dangerously thin in others. She was visibly frustrated, on the verge of tears, muttering, I'm no good at this. I'm ruining it. The instructor, a gentle man with clay-caked hands, came over. He didn't take over her wheel. He said, Stop trying to make it perfect. You're fighting the clay. Look at what it's wanting to be. He had her stop the wheel. See this bulge here? That could be the belly of a little pot-bellied jar. This uneven rim. That gives it character. Let it be asymmetrical. Your job isn't to force it to match an ideal in your head. Your job is to collaborate with the clay you have, right now, and see what unique form wants to emerge from this lump, with these hands. She took a deep breath, restarted the wheel, and began working with the form as it was, not as she thought it should be. What emerged wasn't a perfect cylinder. It was a charming, squat, little jar with a wonky, expressive lip. At the end of the class, it was arguably the most interesting piece in the room. It looked alive. It had a story. Her struggle was baked right into its form, and that made it beautiful. Your mind, your heart, your life is that lump of clay on the wheel. Spiritual perfectionism is you, fighting with it, trying to force it into a symmetrical, smooth, ideal shape that exists only in your imagination. It's exhausting and it kills the spirit of the material. True practice is the attitude of that potter. What is wanting to emerge here? What is the unique, authentic form of this life, with these experiences, in this moment? Your flaws are the wobbles, the bulges, the uneven rims that make you you. They are not mistakes. They are features. They are the handwriting of your existence on the vessel of your being. So, the next time you look in the mirror and see the lines of worry or age, don't see them as cracks of decay. See them as kintsugi seams, tracing the map of your smiles, your concerns, your endurance. They are not the erosion of your beauty, they are the proof of your presence. You have been here. You have felt. You have survived. And that is more beautiful than any airbrushed, perfect emptiness could ever be. We harbor a deep, often unexamined, belief about peace. We imagine it as a permanent condition of stillness, a flat, calm sea under a cloudless sky. A state where the winds of worry have died down, the waves of emotion have settled, and all is serene and quiet. And when life inevitably erupts, when the gales of financial stress hit, when the tidal waves of grief crash over us, when the squalls of conflict churn the waters, we interpret this as a personal failure. I've lost my peace, we think. We believe the storm is proof that we are doing it wrong, that we are not spiritual enough, not strong enough, not good enough at this practice of being human. But what if we have peace entirely backwards? What if peace has nothing to do with the absence of the storm? Let me offer you a different metaphor, the lighthouse. Picture a classic lighthouse, standing sentinel on a wave-battered, rocky promontory in the North Atlantic. Its sole reason for existence is not to create calm weather. It cannot command the 100-foot waves to shrink, nor can it silence the hurricane-force winds screaming around its tower. That is not its purpose. The lighthouse is built for one thing, to stand firm in the midst of absolute chaos. Its foundation is dug so deep into the bedrock that no force of water or wind can undermine it. Its structure is engineered to sway, to flex, to withstand incredible pressure without collapsing. And most importantly, through the blinding spray and the pitch darkness, it keeps its light burning. A steady, rhythmic beam cuts through the chaos, offering a fixed point of reference, a promise of safe bearing to any ship caught in the tempest. You are that lighthouse. Your feelings, the anxiety, the rage, the sorrow, the euphoria, are the ever-changing weather of the sea. Your swirling thoughts are the white-capped waves. You cannot prevent the storm systems of life from forming. A diagnosis will arrive. A betrayal will surface. A dream will dissolve. The storm is not optional. Peace, therefore, is not the fantasy of a calm sea. Peace is the quality of the lighthouse. It is the depth of your foundation in awareness. It is the flexibility of your structure, your ability to feel intense emotion without shattering. It is the consistency of your light, your capacity to remember who you are and what matters, even when you cannot see through the spray. This reframes everything. Instead of wasting energy trying to control the weather, a futile and exhausting endeavor, you invest in fortifying the lighthouse. Your meditation practice, your moments of mindfulness, your conscious breaths, are not about making your feelings go away. They are about pouring concrete into your foundation, testing the flexibility of your beams, and polishing the lens of your awareness so your light can shine clear. I am reminded of a story from the Inuit tradition of the far north, shared with me by a cultural anthropologist who lived in Nunavut. She described the ancient practice of teaching navigation during a whiteout blizzard. When the Arctic wind whips the snow into a featureless, blinding void, all visual landmarks disappear. The horizon vanishes. Sky and ground become one swirling, disorienting mass. In such a moment, the novice panics. The instinct is to run, to find a familiar rock, a house, anything. But running in a whiteout is a death sentence. You exhaust yourself, become utterly lost, and succumb to the elements. The teaching, passed down for generations, is this: when the whiteout comes, sit down. Right where you are. Build a small wall of snow against the wind for shelter. And then, you wait. You become still. You listen to your breath. You feel the cold. You notice the subtle sounds of the wind. You do not fight the storm. You become a calm, attentive point within it. The storm will eventually pass, or the wind will shift for a moment, revealing a star, a shadow, a known shape. Your survival depends not on frantic action born of fear, but on the profound capacity for steady, present-moment awareness in the heart of the blinding chaos. Our emotional and psychological storms are perfect whiteouts. Grief, panic, overwhelm, they obliterate our inner landmarks. The future disappears. The past is meaningless. All we see is the blinding whirl of pain or fear. Our conditioned response is to run. We run into distraction, scrolling, consuming, binge-watching. We run into blame: it's their fault, my fault, the world's fault. We run into substance or frantic activity. We exhaust ourselves trying to outrun a storm that is, in fact, internal. The practice is the spiritual equivalent of sitting down. It is to stop the mental running. It is to feel the full force of the fear, the anger, the sadness, without believing you must immediately fix it, explain it, or escape it. You build a small wall of mindful attention against the wind of panic, and you wait. You listen to the feeling itself, as a pure sensation in the body. You anchor in the breath. The storm of emotion may not pass quickly, but your relationship to it will change. You will realize you are not the blizzard, you are the awareness that contains it. And in that realization, a landmark, your own enduring presence, becomes visible again. Modern neurobiology gives us a glimpse into how this works. Research on mindfulness has shown it can shrink the amygdala, the brain's ancient alarm center responsible for the fight-flight-freeze response. Think of the amygdala as the lighthouse's storm alarm. It's designed to clang loudly at any sign of threat. In individuals with chronic stress or PTSD, the amygdala can be enlarged and hyperreactive, sounding the alarm at the slightest provocation. Mindfulness practice doesn't remove the alarm, it turns down its sensitivity and volume. It also strengthens the connections between the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex, the brain's lighthouse keeper responsible for rational assessment, perspective, and regulation. This means when the storm of a strong emotion hits, you are less likely to be hijacked by the raw alarm signal. The lighthouse keeper, prefrontal cortex, can assess the situation. This is intense anger, but it is not a literal threat to my life, and choose a skillful response, rather than just reacting from primal panic. You are, quite literally, building a sturdier neurological lighthouse. Let's translate this into a practical tool you can use the next time you feel the first gusts of an inner storm. When you feel the surge, that tightening in the chest of anxiety, the heat of anger in your face, here's what to do. First, stop. Sit down. If you possibly can, literally stop moving. Sit in a chair or on the floor. If you can't sit, stand still and plant your feet firmly on the ground. This is the physical act of sitting down in the blizzard. It interrupts the momentum of panic. Next, connect to the rock. Pour 95% of your attention into the physical sensation of your feet making contact with the floor. Feel your weight being fully supported by the earth. Sense the solidity. This is your connection to the bedrock. Your thoughts are the storm, but your feet on the ground are the unchanging foundation. Stay here for 3 full breaths. Then, name the weather. Silently and gently, label the emotional storm. Ah, this is a hurricane of anxiety. This is a blizzard of rage. Do this with the neutrality of a lighthouse keeper logging conditions. Not good, not bad. Just data. This simple act creates critical distance between you and the emotion. Finally, anchor to the breath wave. Bring your attention to your breath. Don't try to make it deep or slow. Just feel it. Feel the cool inhale like a wave washing up on the rock. Feel the warm exhale like a wave receding. For 3 more breaths, let your awareness ride the breath wave, using it as an anchor point in the swirling sea. You are not doing this to make the storm vanish. You are doing it to remember that you are the lighthouse that can withstand it. The storm may rage on, but you have found your footing, you have identified the conditions, and you have lit the small, steady lamp of your breath. You are no longer lost in the whiteout, you are present within it. I once saw this principle embodied not by a monk, but by an old lobsterman in Maine. A sudden, violent squall had blown up while we were on his boat, far from shore. The sea, which had been gentle, became a terrifying mess of steep, choppy waves. The wind ripped the spray horizontal. I was gripped by pure terror, clutching the rail, sure we would capsize. The old man, however, was the picture of calm concentration. He didn't curse the storm or panic. He slightly adjusted the throttle, turned the bow to meet the largest waves at the best angle, and kept his eyes moving between the compass, the horizon, and the water directly ahead. His movements were economical, precise, and utterly present. He was in relationship with the storm, not at war with it. He was the lighthouse and the skilled keeper simultaneously. His peace was not the absence of danger, it was the quality of his alert, competent, unflinching presence in the face of it. We made it back safely, and I learned more about real peace in that hour than I had in years of reading about it. Your life will send squalls. This is guaranteed. The practice is to become that lobsterman of your own soul. To learn the skills of inner navigation. To know how to adjust your inner throttle, your energy, how to meet the big waves of emotion head-on so they don't swamp you from the side, and to keep your inner compass, your values, your breath, your awareness fixed on true north. The goal is not a storm-free life. The goal is a seaworthy vessel and a skillful captain. The human mind has a peculiar, almost artistic talent for magnification. It can take a single event, a critical comment, a missed opportunity, a moment of social awkwardness, a thread no longer than your finger, and weave from it an entire tapestry of suffering that covers the wall of your consciousness. We mistake the single, errant thread for the whole cloth. We see a flaw in the pattern and conclude the entire weaving is ruined. This is the birthplace of rumination, that exhausting mental loop where we replay, analyze, and agonize over a problem until it grows monstrous and defines our entire reality. The Buddha pinpointed this mechanism with his teaching on the two arrows. The first arrow is the initial, unavoidable pain of life. You get sick, someone speaks harshly to you, a project fails. It hurts. This is the slipped thread in the loom. The second arrow is everything we add on top, the story of what it means: I'm unlovable, I'm a failure, the guilt, the shame, the catastrophic forecasting, my career is over. This is us, taking that single thread and frantically weaving an entire tapestry of misery with it. The first arrow is life. The second arrow is optional, self-created suffering. I witnessed the opposite of this, the antidote, in a highland village in Guatemala. A master weaver sat at her backstrap loom, her body the tension point for intricate patterns that told stories of her Mayan heritage. I watched, mesmerized, as her shuttle flew. Then, it happened. Her hand slipped. A vibrant crimson thread shot through a section of the weave that was meant to be a serene, deep blue. I gasped inwardly, my Western mind leaping to the conclusion: mistake. Ruin. She'd have to painstakingly pick it out, losing precious time and possibly damaging the surrounding threads. The weaver paused. She didn't curse or tense up. She leaned forward, studied the bright red streak for a long moment, and then, she smiled. With a calm decisiveness, she didn't unravel. She adapted. She picked up a bobbin of a complementary gold thread. Over the next several rows, she began to incorporate the red streak. She built upon it. What began as an error became the central crest of a magnificent, fiery quetzal bird emerging in the border. The flaw was not hidden, it was transformed into the most stunning, focal point of the entire piece. The tapestry was more beautiful, more dynamic, and held a more interesting story because of the mistake. Our minds are not master weavers. They are panicked, untrained apprentices. When we make a mistake, snap at our child, fumble a presentation, we don't see a single red thread. We see a ruined masterpiece. We launch into the second arrow, I'm a terrible parent. I'm incompetent. We then spend hours, days, even years mentally picking at that thread, unraveling our entire sense of worth and capability. We are so busy declaring the tapestry ruined that we never think to ask the weaver's question, how can this be incorporated? Cognitive behavioral therapy calls this catastrophizing, or magnification, a cognitive distortion where we blow a negative event out of proportion. Neuroscience shows that rumination like this is associated with increased activity in the brain's default mode network, that time-traveling circuitry, and with decreased problem-solving capacity in the prefrontal cortex. In essence, when we weave the second arrow tapestry, we are literally disabling the part of our brain that could find a creative solution or a new perspective. We become trapped in the story of the problem. The practice, then, is to interrupt the panicked apprentice and call in the inner master weaver. When you find yourself hit by the first arrow and feel the second arrow beginning to fly, pause. Start by identifying the first arrow. State the bare, neutral fact. You might say, my boss criticized my report in the meeting, or I forgot my friend's birthday. Keep it small, specific, and clean. Then, catch the second arrow in flight. Listen to the story your mind is instantly spinning. She thinks I'm useless. I'll never get promoted. Acknowledge this as a story, not as absolute truth. Next, thank your mind. Silently say, thank you, mind, for that dramatic story about my permanent professional failure. This creates gentle, humorous separation. You are not the story, you are the one hearing it. Finally, ask the weaver's question, if this red thread is now part of the pattern, how can I incorporate it? What does it make possible that wasn't possible before? This shifts you from problem-focused rumination to creative, present-moment engagement. For the criticized report, this red thread of feedback makes it possible for me to learn exactly what my boss values, so my next report can be more aligned. It creates an opportunity for a clarifying conversation. For the forgotten birthday, this red thread of my forgetfulness makes it possible for me to offer a heartfelt, humble apology, which could deepen our friendship through vulnerability. It reminds me to set better reminders, a practical skill. This isn't positive thinking. It's adaptive thinking. It's moving from, this ruins everything, to, this changes the pattern. Now, what's the most skillful way to weave with this new thread? A powerful longitudinal study from the University of California followed individuals who had experienced significant professional setbacks. The researchers found that those who engaged in benefit finding, actively looking for the potential learning, strength, or new direction embedded in the failure, recovered faster, showed higher long-term career satisfaction, and were less likely to experience prolonged depression. They were the weavers. Those who ruminated on the failure as pure loss remained stuck, their mental looms jammed with the single, painful thread. So, the next time you make a mistake, large or small, hear the panicked apprentice in your head start to cry, ruin. Gently quiet them. Channel the calm, creative presence of the Guatemalan weaver. Look at the red thread. See it not as a destroyer of the old pattern, but as the unexpected beginning of a new one. Your life's tapestry isn't meant to be a flawless, predictable repetition. It's meant to be a living, evolving work of art, where the most interesting patterns often begin with a slipped shuttle. We construct our identities like fortresses. From the raw materials of memory, preference, and social feedback, we build a solid, seemingly permanent structure called me. I am an anxious person. I am a procrastinator. I am not a math person. I am the one who always gets left out. We point to experiences like stones and mortar, believing we have built something that will last forever. But what if this is the fundamental error? What if you are not the fortress at all, but something far more fluid, powerful, and free? The Buddhist teaching of anatta, often translated as non-self, is one of the most misunderstood of all his insights. It does not mean you don't exist. That would be nihilism, and the Buddha explicitly rejected that. What it points to is the absence of a fixed, separate, unchanging self-entity lurking behind your eyes, running the show. You exist, but not in the solid, static way you think you do. A more helpful metaphor is a river. A river is a recognizable phenomenon. You can point to the Mississippi, the Ganges, the Amazon. It has a name, a history, defining characteristics. But if you try to find the thing that is the river, you cannot. You cannot grab a handful of water and say, "This is the Mississippi." That water was from a tributary in Minnesota a week ago and will be in the Gulf of Mexico next month. The river is not the water. It is not the banks. It is not the fish within it. The river is the total, dynamic process of flowing. It is a verb pretending to be a noun. You are that river. Your body is a constantly flowing process of cell death and regeneration. Your thoughts are transient events appearing and vanishing in consciousness. Your emotions are weather patterns moving through the sky of your awareness. Your memories are not solid possessions, but fleeting electrical reconstructions. The only thing that creates the illusion of a solid me is the persistent, repetitive story of continuity, the thought stream that says, I, me, mine, linking one moment to the next. The suffering comes when we mistake a temporary formation in the river for the river's permanent nature. A whirlpool forms, a persistent pattern of anxious thinking. We say, I am anxious, and we solidify the whirlpool. We build our identity around it. An eddy of resentment catches debris, old hurts, grudges. We say, I am a resentful person, and we become the eddy. A logjam of past trauma blocks the flow. We say, I am damaged, and we become the blockage. But you are not the whirlpool, the eddy, or the logjam. You are the vast, aware space of the river in which these temporary formations arise, have their life, and pass away. I had a visceral experience of this on a boat tour of the Jökulsárlón Glacier Lagoon in Iceland. Before us was a towering wall of ancient, blue ice, a glacier, centuries old, massive, seemingly the very definition of permanence. And yet, our guide explained, it is flowing. Slowly, inevitably, it moves toward the sea. As it meets the water, it calves, huge chunks of ice break off with a thunderous crack and become icebergs. These icebergs float in the lagoon, separate, majestic, solid. Tourists, myself included, take countless photos of the icebergs, saying, "Look at the glacier." But the iceberg is not the glacier. It is a temporary fragment, already melting, already changing shape, destined to dissolve into the sea. The glacier is the vast, slow, powerful, flowing process upstream. Your solid, frozen, I am stories are the icebergs. I am unworthy. That's an iceberg, capped from some past experience of shame, floating in the lagoon of your present mind. It feels so real, so permanent, so cold. But it is just a fragment of a much larger, flowing process. And even as you observe it, it is melting, changing. You are the glacier, not the iceberg. You are the flowing awareness that contains all thoughts and feelings, not any single one of them. This understanding is the master key to releasing fixed, painful identities. If you are not a solid rock of anxiety, then you are not condemned to be forever stubbed by it. You are water. You can learn to flow around obstacles. You can wear down old, rigid patterns with gentle, persistent awareness. Your nature is to move, to adapt, to find the way. When a solid, painful self-concept arises, like, I'm a failure, or, I'm unlovable, try this. First, notice the iceberg. Acknowledge the thought. You might say silently, "Ah. The failure iceberg has appeared in the lagoon." Then, immediately feel the flow. Drop your attention from the thought and into your direct, physical experience of motion and sensation. Feel the pulse of blood in your wrists or neck. Feel the rise and fall of your chest with each breath. Spend 30 seconds deeply immersing yourself in the undeniable fact of flow and change within your own body. Finally, inquire gently. Ask yourself, without needing an answer, am I the solid, cold iceberg of failure, or am I the vast, aware, flowing space in which this thought is floating and melting? Just asking the question invites a seismic shift in identity. This perspective is liberating for relationships, too. When you see others as fixed entities, they are so selfish, he is always angry, you are seeing their icebergs and mistaking them for their glacier. This creates rigidity and blame. When you remember that they, too, are rivers, are glaciers, it becomes easier to have compassion. Their selfish behavior is a temporary whirlpool, their anger a passing storm system in their flow. It doesn't excuse harm, but it allows you to respond to the behavior without freezing the other person into a permanent, negative identity. You see the humanity flowing beneath the temporary formation. A fascinating field of psychology called narrative identity research shows that people who view their lives as an ongoing, evolving story, where the self is the protagonist who learns and changes, have higher levels of well-being and resilience than those who see their traits as fixed. They are the river narrators. The practice of self-distancing, viewing your own experiences from a slight third-person perspective, e.g., why is David feeling this way, has been shown to reduce emotional reactivity and promote wiser reasoning. You are literally stepping back from the iceberg to see the wider glacial flow. So, when the old, familiar, painful story about who you are arises, don't fight it. Don't believe it. Simply acknowledge it as an iceberg. Then, turn your attention to the flow of your breath, the pulse of your life, the vast awareness that holds it all. You are not the rock in the river, causing suffering. You are the river itself, powerful, clear, and inherently free to find its course. We live in a culture addicted to the spectacular, the instantaneous, the bloom. We want the overnight transformation, the 30-day fix, the breakthrough moment that changes everything. We sit in meditation for a week and wonder why we're not enlightened. We practice kindness for a day and feel defeated when irritation returns. We approach our inner growth like a spectator at a fireworks show, waiting for the next big, colorful explosion, bored by the dark sky in between. But real, durable transformation does not work this way. It works with the slow, silent, profound intelligence of a garden. I learned this not from a scripture, but from my grandmother in her small, miraculous plot of land in rural Pennsylvania. She grew the most extraordinary tomatoes. Fat, sun-warmed, bursting with a flavor that tasted like summer itself. As a child, I'd visit in July and August, gorging on them straight from the vine. But one spring visit, all I saw was mud. Cold, wet, unremarkable brown earth. She was out there, not planting seeds yet, but turning over the soil, mixing in dark, rich compost from a pile at the edge of the yard. "Grandma," I asked, impatient, "when do we get the tomatoes?" She didn't look up from her work, her hands black with earth. "We're getting them right now, honey," she said. "The tomato is happening in this mud. If the soil isn't right, the seed won't matter one bit." She taught me that 90% of gardening, and 90% of any real change, is invisible. It happens underground. It's the quality of the soil, the nutrients, the drainage, the teeming microbial life, the structure that allows roots to breathe and spread. If you focus only on the plant above ground, the stem, the leaves, the flower, you will fail. You must tend the soil. You water it, feed it, weed it, protect it from compaction. You do this faithfully, day after day, with no visible reward for weeks on end. Then, a tiny, green shoot breaks the surface. You don't stop tending the soil. More weeks pass. Leaves form, the plant stretches toward the sun. You keep tending the soil. Finally, a fragile yellow flower appears, and then, the fruit. But that glorious tomato is simply the visible, delicious expression of all the invisible, patient work that happened in the dark, secret earth. Your mind and heart are that garden. The blooms, the moments of profound peace, spontaneous compassion, crystal clear insight, unshakable confidence, are wonderful. They are the tomatoes of July. But chasing the bloom is a futile, frustrating endeavor. If you try to force yourself to feel peaceful during a meditation, you are like a child gluing a silk flower to a dead stick. It might look right for a second, but it has no life, no connection to the roots, no sustenance. It's a decoration, not a transformation. The true practice is the tending of the soil. The soil is your daily, moment-to-moment attention. It is the quality of your presence. It's the 3 conscious breaths you take before reaching for your phone in the morning. It's the alleyway minute you practice when feeling overwhelmed. It's using the weaver's question when you make a mistake instead of spiraling into shame. It's feeling your feet on the ground during a difficult conversation. It's the snow wall practice in a surge of anger. This is unglamorous work. It's muddy. It often feels like nothing is happening. You do it on a rainy Tuesday when you're tired. You do it in the checkout line when you're in a hurry. You do it after you've said the wrong thing and the heat of regret is in your face. You are not doing it to get a bloom tomorrow. You are doing it because this is how you care for the garden of your being. You are improving the soil structure of your nervous system. And when the soil is rich, well aerated, and patiently tended, blooms happen according to their own innate wisdom and timing. A moment of unexpected grace during a painful goodbye. A deep, wordless sense of contentment on an ordinary walk. A resilient calm that meets bad news not with collapse, but with a steady heart. These are the tomatoes of high summer, grown from the faithful, muddy work of spring. Neuroscience provides a beautiful analogy. A seminal study at the University of Wisconsin-Madison's Center for Healthy Minds used fMRI scans to track brain changes in people undergoing mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR. The initial, quicker changes were seen in the prefrontal cortex, the brain's executive center associated with directing attention. This is like seeing the first green shoots above ground, better focus, a bit more control. But the more profound, lasting transformations, the ones correlated with sustained well-being and emotional resilience, took longer and occurred in deeper, older brain structures. The amygdala, the fear/alarm center, showed decreased reactivity and even reduced gray matter density. The insula, which maps internal bodily sensations, showed increased activity and connectivity. In our metaphor, this is the transformation of the soil itself. A quieter, less reactive fear response is like soil that no longer floods with every rain. A richer, clearer connection to bodily sensation is like soil teeming with healthy microbial life, able to nourish the plant fully. The fruit, lasting well-being, was the direct result of tending the neurological soil over time, not of desperately looking for flowers. So, we must release the frantic, bloom-centric mindset. We must pick up the trowel and the watering can of daily, micro-practices. Let's create a simple, sustainable rhythm that cares for your inner garden without overwhelm. In the morning, take just 1 minute. Upon waking, before you check anything, take 3 breaths. For those 3 breaths, just feel your body in bed. The warmth, the weight, the contact. Set a simple intention: today, I will tend the soil. That's it. Throughout the day, use micro-moments as soil amendments. When you drink water, really drink it. Feel its coolness, its journey down your throat. That's watering your awareness. When you notice a harsh self-judgment, recognize it as a weed. Don't fight it. Just gently pull your attention back to your task. That's weeding. When something difficult happens, instead of rejecting it, see if you can compost it. Ask, what can this teach me? Turn the waste into nutrient. In the evening, take 2 minutes. Before sleep, review the day not as a judge, but as a gardener assessing the plot. You might note, that conversation was rich soil. That moment of impatience was a bit dry. That act of kindness was like sunshine. No grading. Just noting. Then, let it all go into the dark to compost overnight. This is how we build a life of substance, not just spectacle. The gardener doesn't curse the seed for not being a tree on day 2. She trusts the process, tends the conditions, and knows that growth, while invisible at times, is ceaseless. Your practice is the same. Tend the soil of this moment, and trust that what needs to bloom will bloom, in its own time, in its own perfect way. We walk through life not just with our physical bodies, but with an invisible, weighty companion. A personal library. This isn't a library of facts, but of stories. The shelves are crammed with volumes whose spines are etched with titles like, The Time I Was Humiliated, Why I Can't Trust People, The Story of My Lack, and How Things Fall Apart. We didn't necessarily choose these books, many were given to us in childhood, written by parents, teachers, peers, and by our own young, interpreting minds. And we are compulsive rereaders. When a current event echoes an old plotline, a rejection that feels familiar, a challenge that smells like past failure, we don't just feel the present moment. We march straight to the library, pull down the relevant, dog-eared volume, and re-immerse ourselves in the entire, painful narrative. We confuse the old story with current reality. The mind is a meaning-making machine. It abhors a vacuum. When something happens, it doesn't just register the event, it scrambles to find which existing book on the shelf it belongs to. This is efficient, but it's also a prison. It means we rarely meet life fresh. We meet it through the smudged lens of our oldest, most cherished tragedies and limitations. There's a powerful concept in psychology called schemas. These are core, often unconscious, beliefs about ourselves, others, and the world that form in early life. A defectiveness schema might whisper, I am fundamentally flawed. An abandonment schema warns, everyone will leave me. These schemas act like the filing system in our library. Any incoming data that vaguely matches gets instantly filed under the old category, reinforcing the story. We don't see the new event, we see the ghost of the old one. I encountered a beautiful counter to this in the form of a street librarian in Lisbon, Portugal. He didn't work in a building. He pushed a cart through the narrow Alfama district, but instead of selling books, he took them in trade. The rule was simple. To borrow a book, you had to give him one of your own. But here was the catch: he would often gently refuse books that were too dog-eared, too annotated with angry margins, too stuck in their old stories. This one, he'd say in gentle Portuguese, has been read too many times. The story is living in you now. Let it stay with me. Take a new one. One you don't know the ending to. Our practice must include becoming this kind of street librarian for our own minds. We must learn to recognize when we are compulsively rereading an old, painful story, and have the courage to take it off our mental cart and exchange it for the open space of not knowing, for the fresh, blank page of the present moment. This is not about denying your past. It's about refusing to let it write your present. Your history is fact. The story you weave from it, the meaning, the verdict, the prophecy, is fiction. Powerful, convincing fiction, but fiction nonetheless. When you feel a strong, familiar reaction, a surge of unworthiness, a panic of abandonment, pause. Begin by identifying the volume. Ask, what old book did I just pull off the shelf? Name it. The "I'm not good enough" story. Then, feel the texture of the book. Notice how it feels in your body to be in this story. Where is the tension? The heaviness? Don't judge it. Just feel the physical signature of this narrative. Next, close the book. Literally, in your mind's eye, see yourself gently closing the old, familiar volume. Feel the weight of it in your hand. Now, return it. Imagine walking to the cart of the street librarian. You hand him the book. He nods, takes it, and places it on his cart. It is no longer in your personal possession to carry and reread. Finally, receive the blank page. In exchange, he hands you not another pre-written book, but a single, crisp, blank sheet of paper. This is the present moment. It holds no story yet. Hold that feeling of openness, of possibility, for just one breath. You are not destroying your past. You are simply changing your relationship to it from that of a prisoner rereading a life sentence to that of a librarian who can reference the text but is not confined to its reading room. Research on post-traumatic growth reveals this principle in action. It's not the trauma itself that leads to growth, but the process of changing one's narrative about the trauma and its place in one's life story. People who can integrate a traumatic event into a larger narrative of resilience, learning, or renewed purpose, who can, in essence, write a new chapter that incorporates but is not defined by the old one, show remarkable increases in wisdom, compassion, and life satisfaction. They have returned the old, dog-eared book of victim and chosen to author a new volume titled Survivor, or even Teacher. Your life is not a pre-written novel hurtling toward a predetermined final chapter. It is an ongoing, collaborative writing project between you and reality. Each moment is a new sentence. The old stories are just rough drafts, earlier chapters. You have the pen for this sentence. Will you copy from the old, painful manuscript, or will you dare to write something new, something true to the fresh data of this very moment? The street librarian in Lisbon offered one more piece of wisdom. He said, "The most dangerous books are not the scary ones. They are the boring ones. The ones you read so often you stop seeing the words. They become the wallpaper of your mind. Don't let your oldest, most limiting stories become boring, invisible wallpaper. See them, thank them for the protection they once offered, and then have the courage to return them. Pick up the blank page. The next word is yours to write." We often frame the spiritual journey as a solitary pilgrimage. The lone seeker on the mountaintop, the silent meditator in the cave, the individual wrestling with their own mind to find peace. This image has its truth. The work of attention is deeply personal. But it contains a dangerous half-truth. It can lead to a sense of spiritual isolation, the belief that our awakening happens in a vacuum, separate from the web of life around us. We forget that no star shines alone, it exists within a galaxy, within a universe of gravitational relationships and shared light. The Buddhist teaching of praditya samutpada, or dependent origination, is a radical antidote to this isolation. It states, simply and profoundly, that all phenomena arise in dependence upon other phenomena. Nothing exists independently. Your very body is a colony of microorganisms, a product of the food grown by sun and soil, built from stardust. Your thoughts are shaped by language, culture, and every conversation you've ever had. Your mood today is influenced by the weather, by a stranger's smile or scowl, by the quality of your sleep, which was influenced by the noise from the street. You are not a sealed, self-contained unit. You are a dynamic, flowing intersection point in a vast, shimmering net of causes and conditions. Imagine a single dewdrop on a spider's web at dawn. It sparkles, a perfect, tiny world reflecting the entire sky. It appears separate. But touch one strand of the web anywhere, and the dewdrop trembles. The sun warms the air, and the dewdrop begins to evaporate, returning to the sky to later fall as rain. The dewdrop's existence, its beauty, its very nature, is entirely dependent on the web, the sun, the air, the night's moisture. It has no independent, separate dewdropness. You are that dewdrop. Your peace is not a private possession. It is intimately connected to the peace of your household, your community, the stranger you pass on the street. I was taught this not in a monastery, but by an astrobiologist contemplating the search for life on other planets. She said, "We used to look for a single, Earth-like planet orbiting in a star's Goldilocks zone, not too hot, not too cold. But now we understand that a planet's capacity to support life isn't just about its star. It's about its system. Does it have a large moon to stabilize its tilt and create tides? Is it part of a solar system with gas giants farther out that act as cosmic vacuum cleaners, deflecting asteroid impacts? Life isn't a solo act. It's a chorus. It requires a stable, interconnected ecosystem. Your inner peace is a form of life. It requires its own ecosystem, relationships of support, a culture of kindness, a personal environment of ethical action. You cannot maintain it while violently disregarding the web you are part of. This understanding transforms practice from a merely internal focus to one of relational stewardship. Your mindfulness isn't just for you, it's for the web. When you pause before speaking in anger, you steady a strand of the web for everyone connected to that conversation. When you practice gratitude, you send a vibrational frequency of abundance through your corner of the net. When you meet your own suffering with compassion, you strengthen the overall capacity for compassion in the human network. Your practice is a contribution to the collective field. Let's try a practice that expands your sense of self from the solitary star to the constellation. First, find your node. Sit quietly. Feel your body as a single point of awareness, your dewdrop on the web. Then, trace the strands of nourishment. With your mind's eye, trace one strand backwards. Follow your next breath. It connects you to the plants that produce the oxygen, to the rain that fed them, to the ocean that evaporated, to the sun that drove the cycle. You are breathing the world. Next, trace the strands of influence. Think of a simple action you will take today, perhaps making a cup of tea. Trace the strands forward. The care with which you boil the water affects your mood. Your mood affects your next interaction. Your interaction affects another person's day. Their day affects others. See your simple action as a ripple moving through the entire network. Finally, rest as the web. For a moment, drop the sense of being a single point. Instead, feel yourself as the entire, sensitive, vibrating web. Feel how tension in one area affects the whole. Rest in this sense of interconnected, responsible belonging. This is not a mystical fantasy. The field of social neuroscience confirms our profound interconnectivity. Mirror neurons in our brains fire both when we perform an action and when we see someone else perform it, creating a neural basis for empathy. We literally feel each other's actions in our own circuitry. Studies show that emotions are contagious, a phenomenon called emotional contagion. One person's calm in a stressful meeting can lower the heart rates of others. Your state of being is not private. It's a public health issue for your immediate environment. Therefore, caring for your own mind is one of the most generous things you can do for the world. It's not selfish, it's systemic hygiene. When you tend your own dewdrop with clarity and kindness, you polish a lens that reflects clarity and kindness to every other dewdrop on the web. You begin to make choices not just from, what do I want, but from, what action best honors and strengthens the web of which I am a part. You are not a lone star seeking your own light. You are a unique, brilliant point in a vast, living constellation. Your light is needed to complete the pattern. And you are held, nourished, and defined by the light of every other star around you. Your peace is our peace. Your freedom is intertwined with all. We live from the neck up. Our culture venerates the thinking mind, analyzing, planning, abstracting. We treat the body as a mere vehicle for the brain, a source of inconvenient demands and confusing signals. We override its fatigue with caffeine, silence its hunger with schedules, and numb its aches and emotional pains with distraction or medication. We have made ourselves strangers in our own flesh. And in this divorce, we lose access to a profound source of intelligence, guidance, and peace. The body is not a dumb animal. It is an ancient, sophisticated instrument of knowing. It receives data long before the conscious mind has formed a thought. Your gut knows when something is off in a relationship before you can articulate it. Your shoulders tighten with burdens you haven't yet acknowledged. Your heart races with excitements or fears your mind is trying to rationalize away. The body speaks in the primal language of sensation, tightness, warmth, pressure, flutter, ache, ease, flow. To be mindful is, fundamentally, to become fluent in this language. It is to listen to the symphony of sensation that is always playing within you. Most of our suffering arises when a bodily sensation arises, anxiety as a clenching in the stomach, grief as a hollow ache in the chest, and the mind immediately slaps a catastrophic label on it and starts telling a story. This clenching means I'm going to fail. This ache means I'll never be happy again. We get lost in the scary story and completely abandon the actual, present moment sensation, which is just a pattern of energy moving through the body. We are like someone at a concert who, upon hearing a somber cello note, leaps up and shouts, "Tragedy," and runs from the hall, missing the entire, complex, beautiful movement that follows. The practice of body scanning or somatic awareness is the practice of returning to the concert hall of your body and simply listening to the music, note by note, without interpreting the entire symphony as good or bad. You learn to feel the clenching as just clenching, a pattern of tension. You can bring curious attention to it. Where exactly does it begin and end? Does it have a texture? Does it change as I breathe? Often, the simple, non-judgmental act of feeling a sensation fully allows it to move, shift, and release. The sensation wasn't the problem, our panic about the sensation was. I learned the depth of this from a Feldenkrais practitioner I met in Berlin, a modality that focuses on somatic education. She worked with a client who had chronic, debilitating back pain that no scan could explain. Instead of focusing on the pain, she had him do tiny, almost imperceptible movements with his pelvis while lying on the floor. "Don't try to fix it," she kept saying. "Just listen. What does this micro-movement feel like? And this?" For weeks, it seemed like nothing was happening. Then, one day, as he was focusing on the subtle sensation of his left hip bone connecting to the floor, he was suddenly awash in a memory of being 7 years old, hiding in a closet during his parents' violent arguments, holding his body in that exact, frozen, tilted position to be as small and quiet as possible. He wept, not from pain, but from recognition. His body had held the shape of that fear for 40 years. By listening to the sensation without agenda, the body finally felt safe enough to reveal its story, and to begin to release its ancient, protective grip. The pain didn't vanish overnight, but its meaning changed. It was no longer a mysterious enemy, but a messenger finally being heard. Your body is your personal, historical archive, written in the language of posture, tension, and sensation. A stiff jaw might hold unspoken words. A sunken chest might carry old grief. A nervous flutter in the belly might be the echo of past excitement you were taught to suppress. Mindfulness of the body is the process of gently opening this archive and listening with compassion. When you notice a strong or persistent bodily sensation, tightness, pain, butterflies, numbness, try this. First, pause and locate. Don't go into the story. Just find it in the body map. You might note tightness in the throat or heaviness on the heart. Then, drop the label. Let go of the word anxiety or sadness. Go beneath the label to the raw data. Explore it as a curious scientist. Notice its size and shape. Does it have a boundary? Explore its texture. Is it jagged, smooth, vibrating? Check its temperature. Hot, cold, neutral. Observe its movement. Is it static, or does it pulse or swirl? Next, breathe into the space around it. Imagine your breath flowing not into the sensation, but into the space surrounding it. Create a field of open, kind awareness around a clenched or aching place. You are not attacking it, you are holding it in awareness. Optionally, you can ask, silently inquire, what do you need me to know? Then listen, not with your thinking mind, but with your felt sense. The answer may not come in words. It may be an image, a memory, or simply a subtle shift in the sensation itself. This practice reunites the mind and body. It teaches you that you are not a mind haunted by a body, but a mind embodied. Every emotion has a somatic signature. By learning to stay with the sensation, you process the emotion at its root, in the nervous system, rather than getting lost in the endless mental commentary about it. Modern research into interoception, the sense of the internal state of the body, confirms its critical role. High interoceptive awareness is linked to better emotional regulation, greater resilience, and a stronger sense of self. People who can accurately perceive their heartbeat, for instance, tend to experience emotions more vividly but also recover from them more quickly. They are better conductors of their own inner symphony. Your body is not the enemy of your peace. It is the very ground of it. The next time you feel restless, agitated, or uneasy, don't just try to think your way out of it. Pause. Drop down out of the spinning mind and into the waiting wisdom of the body. Listen to the symphony. The tight note in your shoulder, the drumbeat of your heart, the soft hum of your breath. In that attentive listening, you will find a stability and an intelligence that thought alone can never provide. You will come home. Walk through the bustling inner marketplace of your mind. Stalls are piled high with glittering goods. The desire for approval, the craving for comfort, the yearning for security, the hunger for significance. Vendors shout their promises, buy this achievement and you'll be happy. This relationship will complete you. This possession will define your worth. And within us, an energetic, persuasive auctioneer takes the stage. This is the voice of craving, of tanha as the Buddha named it. It doesn't just see a desire, it amplifies it. It holds up each desired object, person, or state, and extols its virtues in a frantic, compelling patter. Imagine how good you'll feel. Look what everyone else has. This is the one thing missing. Bid now, or you'll regret it forever. We confuse this auctioneer's frantic voice for our own deepest truth. We believe if we want something this intensely, it must be obtained for happiness to be possible. So we bid. We bid with our time, our energy, our peace of mind, our integrity. We get into debt to our own well-being. And sometimes we win the auction. We get the job, the partner, the house. The auctioneer falls silent for a moment, and then moves immediately to the next item on the block. The pleasure of acquisition fades, and a new craving is presented. The cycle is endless because the auctioneer's job is not to bring you happiness. Its job is to keep you bidding. The suffering isn't in the wanting itself. It's in believing the auctioneer's story that satisfaction lies in the next winning bid. It's the identification with the craving, the feeling that, I am this wanting, and until it is fulfilled, I am incomplete. I saw a profound illustration of this while traveling in Marrakesh, Morocco. In the central square, Jima El Fna, the noise is overwhelming: snake charmers, storytellers, food stalls, and merchants. One merchant in particular caught my attention. He sold beautiful, ornate lanterns. He wouldn't just state a price. He would perform. He'd light a candle inside one, making intricate patterns dance on the walls. He'd whisper about the romance it would bring to a home. He'd imply it was the last one of its kind. Tourists would be mesmerized, caught in his story, and pay far more than they intended. Once the transaction was complete, the spell broke. They'd walk away, lantern in hand, and often a look of slight bewilderment would cross their face. A silent, wait, why did I just need this so desperately? The desire was manufactured in real time by the performance. Your inner auctioneer is that merchant. It takes a simple need or a neutral want and performs a drama around it, lighting it up with projections of future happiness, painting pictures of lack in the present. The practice is not to destroy the marketplace or become a passionless ascetic. It is to learn to walk through the stalls with discernment. It's to recognize the auctioneer's voice as a voice, not as your commander-in-chief. It's to pause before you bid and ask, is this an authentic need, or am I being hypnotized by the performance? When you feel a strong, compulsive pull towards something, scrolling social media, making a purchase, seeking reassurance, pause. Start by naming the actor. Say to yourself, ah. The auctioneer is on stage. Then, listen to the pitch. Detach and just listen to the promises being made. If you just check your email, you'll feel on top of things. Hear it as a sales pitch, not a truth. Next, feel the sensation of wanting. Drop below the story to the bodily feeling of craving itself. Where is it? A restless energy in the hands? A hollow feeling in the gut? Feel the raw, physical sensation without buying the story about what will fix it. Now, ask the grounding question: if I never got this thing, if I never received that approval, if I never achieved that goal, is peace still possible right now, in this breath? This question reclaims your peace from the conditional grip of the auctioneer. Finally, choose, don't react. From this clearer space, you can still choose to act. But now you act from choice rather than from compulsive bidding. This de-identification weakens the auctioneer's power. You start to see desires come and go like weather, without having to build your identity around each storm system. You realize you are the spacious marketplace itself, not a desperate bidder trapped within it. You can appreciate the lanterns without believing you need to own one to be whole. We expect consistency from ourselves. We want to be perpetually kind, always patient, constantly motivated. We view our emotional variability as a flaw, a sign of instability or spiritual weakness. A day of bright, creative energy is good. A day of gray, heavy melancholy is bad. We wage war against our own inner climate, trying to force summer in the midst of winter. But what if your heart, like the earth, has its own necessary and intelligent seasons? What if each phase of your emotional landscape serves a purpose in the greater ecology of your being? Consider the natural world. Winter is not a failure of summer. It is a period of deep rest, of drawing energy inward, of apparent barrenness that allows for essential composting underground. Spring's burst of growth is impossible without that quiet, cold consolidation. The intense, expansive energy of summer gives way to autumn's release, the brilliant letting go that makes space for the next cycle. Each season has its beauty, its challenge, and its vital function. We deny ourselves this same cyclical grace. When grief arrives, we call it depression and rush to medicate or distract ourselves from its necessary work of dissolution. When anger arises, we call it unspiritual and suppress it, rather than listening to its message about violated boundaries. When we feel slow and dormant, we call it laziness and lash ourselves with productivity, ignoring our need for wintering. I learned this from a viticulturist in the Bordeaux region of France. He spoke of the vine's annual cycle with reverence. People love the harvest, he said. The activity, the fruit, the triumph. But the most important work happens in winter. The vine looks dead. But underground, it is gathering its strength. The cold is necessary to reset its cycle. If we had a false spring, a warm spell in January, it would be a disaster. The vine would bud too early, and the frost would kill it. The vine needs its winter to be resilient. He then pointed to a gnarled, ancient vine, its trunk twisted like rope. Its character, its complexity, its ability to produce profound wine comes from having lived through many, many winters. The difficult seasons are what give it depth. Your heart is that vine. Your periods of contraction, sadness, or anger are not aberrations. They are your winters and storms. They are times of necessary composting, of drawing energy inward, of strengthening roots that are invisible to the world. To reject these seasons is to rob yourself of depth, resilience, and the full spectrum of your humanity. The goal is not to live in perpetual, bland springtime. The goal is to learn the wisdom of each season, to cooperate with it, and to trust the cycle. Here's a practice for working with your inner seasons. First, identify the season. Without judgment, name your current inner climate. You might say, This feels like an inner winter, quiet, heavy, inward, or this is high summer, energetic, expansive, bright. Then, ask, what is needed here? Each season has optimal actions. Winter needs rest, gentleness, nourishment. Spring needs careful tending, patience with new growth. Summer needs engagement but also guarding against burnout. Autumn needs letting go, gratitude, honoring what is passing. Next, align your actions. Instead of forcing a summer project during a personal winter, ask, what would be a winter-appropriate action? Maybe it's reading, resting, or reflecting instead of launching and producing. Finally, trust the turn of the wheel. Remind yourself, this season will not last forever. It is part of a cycle. My job is not to escape it, but to inhabit it with as much grace and awareness as I can. This practice ends the civil war against your own nature. It replaces resistance with intelligent cooperation. You stop pathologizing your natural emotional rhythms and start working with them. A day of grief becomes a sacred day of release, not a failed day of happiness. A morning of irritability becomes a signal to slow down and check your boundaries, not proof of your bad character. Phenomenology, a branch of philosophy and psychology, emphasizes the importance of describing experience without immediately interpreting or judging it. By simply naming your inner weather as it is, you practice phenomenology on yourself. You create space between you and the experience, allowing you to respond to it skillfully rather than being blindly driven by it. By honoring your seasons, you become like the old vine, gnarled, complex, deeply rooted, and capable of bearing fruit with a richness that only comes from having endured, and even embraced, every kind of weather. We've explored awareness, acceptance, and interconnection. But there is a foundational pillar of peace that is often overlooked in modern mindfulness, ethical conduct, or sila in the Buddhist tradition. We might think of ethics as a set of restrictive rules, a moralistic list of thou shalt nots. But from the perspective of inner peace, ethics are something far more practical and profound. They are the anchor you drop in the stormy seas of life. Imagine you are on a ship in high waves. If you have no anchor, you are tossed violently, at the mercy of every wind and current. Your energy is spent purely on not capsizing. This is a life of reactive, unprincipled action. Saying what is convenient, taking what you want, avoiding responsibility. The inner state is one of constant turbulence, guilt, shame, and fear of being found out. Now, imagine you drop a strong, heavy anchor. The ship still rocks on the surface, the storms of emotion and external events still happen, but it is no longer adrift. It has a fixed point of stability. It can ride out the storm without being dashed against the rocks. Ethical intention is that anchor. It is the clear, non-negotiable commitment to act in ways that cause minimal harm, to speak truthfully, to respect what is not yours, to maintain clarity of mind, avoiding intoxication of all kinds, and to relate to others with kindness. This is not about being a saint. It's about being a competent captain. Every time you act against your own ethical knowing, gossip, a white lie, taking credit that isn't yours, you are cutting your anchor line. You may feel a momentary thrill of speed or advantage, but you have set yourself adrift. The ensuing inner turbulence, the low-grade anxiety, the self-distrust, the need to keep your story straight, is a far greater tax on your peace than any momentary pleasure was worth. I saw the tangible power of this anchor in a restorative justice circle in Oakland, California. A young man who had caused harm was sitting with the community members he had affected. The process wasn't about punishment, but about accountability and repair. As he listened to the pain he had caused, he was visibly shaken. But the facilitator guided him to not collapse in shame, but to find his anchor. What is one true thing you can say right now? What is one clear, clean action you can offer? He struggled, then said, "The true thing is, I am sorry." The clear action is, I will work to pay back what I took, and I will speak to other kids so they don't make my mistakes. It was simple. It wasn't grandiose. But in that moment of taking clean, responsible action, you could see his entire being settle. The storm of shame and deflection began to calm. He had dropped his anchor. His path to inner peace, and the community's peace, began in that ethical commitment. Your anchor is built through micro-choices throughout the day. Choosing to listen fully instead of planning your rebuttal. Admitting you don't know instead of bluffing. Doing what you said you would do, even when it's inconvenient. Refusing to participate in malicious gossip. Taking only what is yours, physically, emotionally, intellectually. Each of these actions is a link in your anchor chain. Together, they create a profound, unshakable inner stability. You are not constantly bracing for the consequences of your own misdeeds. You can look yourself in the eye. This creates a quality of relaxation and self-trust that no meditation technique alone can provide. Meditation happens on this foundation. Trying to cultivate peace while actively creating harm through your speech and actions is like trying to build a beautiful house on a foundation of shifting sand. Here's a simple evening practice for strengthening your ethical anchor. Each evening, reflect on one moment from your day. Not a catalog of failures, but one specific moment where you had a choice. You might recall, when my colleague was blamed, I had a choice to speak up or stay silent, or, when I received too much change, I had a choice to return it or pocket it. Then, assess the action. Did your action align with your inner anchor, your commitment to non-harm, truth, and respect? Be honest, gentle, and precise. If you drifted, if you acted in a way that cut the anchor line, simply acknowledge it. You might note, I stayed silent because I was afraid. That weakened my anchor. No drama. Just resolve to speak up next time a similar choice arises. This is repair. If you held firm, if you acted with integrity, feel the stability it creates. Savor that feeling of inner solidity. You might think, I told the cashier about the extra change. That strengthened my anchor. I feel clear. This practice makes ethics a living, daily craftsmanship of your character, not an abstract ideal. You are literally forging your own anchor, link by link. When the next great storm of life hits, and it will, you will have something to hold you fast. You will not be tossed into reactive, harmful behavior that creates more suffering. You will be able to say, from a steady place, this is who I am, even in this. This is how I will act. That is the birthplace of unshakable peace. Attention is not just a neutral spotlight. It is an alchemical force. What you pay attention to, and how you pay attention, literally transforms your experience of reality. You can take a moment of mundane frustration, being stuck in traffic, waiting in a long line, and, through the quality of your attention, either turn it into the lead of suffering or discover the gold of presence hidden within it. We usually operate with reactive attention. Something happens, a delay, a criticism. And our attention is instantly, involuntarily captured by it. It then gets funneled through filters of problem solving, blame, and story making. The traffic jam becomes a disaster that's ruining my day. The wait becomes proof of my powerlessness. This reactive process turns base metal into lead, heavy, toxic, and inert. Mindful attention is the alchemist's art. It involves a deliberate, gentle turning of the mind. It says, before I let this moment be defined by my habitual reaction, I will investigate it directly. I will place my attention not on the story about the moment, but on the raw sensory data of the moment. This shift is the philosopher's stone. It doesn't change the external circumstance, but it transmutes your relationship to it. I witnessed a masterclass in this alchemy from a jazz pianist in New Orleans. His band was mid-solo when a string on the upright bass snapped with a loud twang. The musician looked shocked, the rhythm faltered. A reactive attention would have seen ruin, a mistake, a broken performance. But the pianist didn't miss a beat. He heard the twang not as a mistake, but as a new note. He immediately incorporated the dissonant sound into his next chord progression, weaving it into the music. He turned to the bassist with a grin, who then started slapping the body of the bass, creating a percussive rhythm from the catastrophe. The audience erupted in cheers. What was lead, a broken string, a disrupted plan, was alchemized into pure gold, a moment of spontaneous, creative collaboration that became the highlight of the night. Your daily life is full of snapping strings, the interrupted plan, the awkward silence, the minor failure, the unexpected delay. Reactive attention creates a story of breakdown. Alchemical attention asks, what new note has just been introduced? Can I include this in the composition? When faced with a frustrating, boring, or painful moment, try this alchemical pause. First, stop. Interrupt the reactive story. Instead of thinking, this traffic is unbearable. My day is ruined, just stop that thought. Then, shift. Deliberately turn your attention to 3 sensory details in the present moment. For sight, look for a color you haven't noticed before, the particular gray of the asphalt, the way light reflects off a bumper. For sound, listen for the most distant sound you can hear, or the quietest nearby sound, the hum of your own car's engine, a bird call from a nearby tree. For sensation, feel a specific physical sensation, the texture of the steering wheel under your thumbs, the feeling of your breath moving through your nostrils. Next, inquire. Ask, if this moment were a piece of music, what is its actual texture, rhythm, and tone right now, stripped of my story about it? Perhaps the texture is one of enforced stillness. The rhythm is the pulse of the turn signal. The tone is neutral, holding potential. Finally, allow. Let the moment be exactly what it is, a unique arrangement of sensory phenomena. You are no longer fighting it, you are attending to it. In that attentive space, a kind of freedom emerges. This is rooted in the neuroscience of neuroplasticity. Your habitual reactive pathways are well-worn neural ruts. Each time you practice this alchemical pause, you are forging a new neural pathway. You are literally rewiring your brain to default to curious presence rather than catastrophic narrative. You are becoming the alchemist of your own experience, learning that the base metal of ordinary, difficult, or boring moments contains the gold of wakefulness, if you know how to look. We spend our lives carving ourselves into a shape. A professional title, a social role, a collection of accomplishments and personality traits. We chisel away at the raw material of our being to fit the templates provided by family, culture, and our own ambitions. We call this becoming someone. And in the process, we often forget the substance we are carving. We become so identified with the intricate statue we have become, with its fine details of successful, nice, strong, or intelligent, that we lose touch with the untouched, whole, and perfect block of wood or stone from which it was formed. The ancient Taoist concept of Pu, the uncarved block, points to this original, natural state before conditioning, before striving, before the sculptor's tools of judgment and desire went to work. It is not a state of primitive ignorance, but of undivided, pristine potential. It is your fundamental awareness before it gets tangled in stories. Your innate compassion before it gets conditional, your simple presence before it gets splintered into past and future. Our suffering arises from believing we are the intricate statue, and then living in constant fear that it will crack, weather, or be judged as insufficient. We polish it frantically. We compare it to other statues. We are exhausted from the maintenance of this carved identity. Peace is not found by adding more intricate carvings, more achievements, more validation. It is found in remembering the uncarved block that remains, solid and whole, at your very core. The statue may be elaborate, but the block is indestructible. I encountered this truth in the workshop of a traditional woodworker in rural Japan. He was beginning a new sculpture from a massive piece of hinoki cypress. For the first 2 days I visited, he didn't pick up a chisel. He simply sat with the block of wood. He walked around it. He touched its grain. He smelled it. He told me, through a translator, I am not deciding what to make. I am listening for what the wood wants to become. The form is already in here. My job is to remove what hides it. His work was not one of imposing a will, but of revealing a nature. He was in service to the uncarved block within the wood. Your practice can be the same. So much of our inner work is additive, trying to be more patient, more loving, more focused. What if, instead, it was subtractive? What if your true work was to gently remove the layers of conditioning, fear, and obsessive thought that obscure your original, uncarved nature, your innate capacity for peace, clarity, and connectedness? You are not building a better statue. You are remembering the block. Let's try a meditation that connects you with your original, uncarved nature. First, sit simply. Adopt a comfortable, dignified posture. Let your hands rest in your lap, open and receptive. Then, sense the volume. Feel your body not as a collection of parts, but as a single, solid volume of awareness. Feel the space you occupy, a block of living, sensing presence. Next, release the carvings. With each exhale, imagine you are not breathing out air, but breathing out a carving, a label, a role, a self-judgment. Exhale, the hard worker. Exhale, the anxious one. Exhale, the story of my past. Don't force it, simply offer it to the outbreath. Imagine these carvings dissolving like mist. Now, rest as the material. With each inhale, breathe in a sense of raw, uncarved potential. Inhale simplicity. Inhale wholeness. Feel yourself as fundamental substance, awareness itself, presence itself. You are not doing anything. You are being this. Finally, inquire. Silently ask, what is here before the story begins? What remains when all the labels fall away? Don't answer with words. Feel for the answer as a somatic sense of grounded, unshakable beingness. This is not a practice of becoming blank or empty. It is a practice of returning to fullness, the fullness of pure potential prior to limitation. The uncarved block is not lacking, it is complete. From this place, action arises not from the insecurity of the statue trying to prove itself, but from the natural, spontaneous expression of the whole being. Compassion flows because it is the nature of the block, not a carving you've worked hard to etch. Peace abides because it is the substance you are made of, not a finish you have applied. In a world that demands you constantly carve yourself into new, marketable shapes, the revolutionary act is to stop carving. To sit, like the woodworker, with your own original nature. To listen. And to realize that the masterpiece you've been seeking is not something you need to create. It is the very ground of your being, waiting patiently beneath the chips and dust of a lifetime of carving. It has been here all along. We have walked a long path together through metaphors and mountains, gardens and galaxies. We've sat with the weaver, the lighthouse keeper, the gardener, the alchemist, and the woodworker. We've learned to put down the bags, feel the flow, tend the soil, and listen to the uncarved block. Now, as our shared journey reaches its culmination, it is time for a ritual of release and a final remembering. Not an ending, but a gathering of the tools you now possess, and a clear pointing to the door that never closes. Let us return to the beach at dusk. Imagine yourself walking on a vast, empty shore. The sand is cool and firm under your bare feet. The waves crash with a rhythmic, ancient sound, not frantic, but profoundly steady. The sky is a canvas of deepening blue, with the first courageous stars piercing through. Ahead, You see the warm, dancing light of a bonfire already built, its flames reaching up to greet the twilight. You approach and settle on the sand, feeling the fire's warmth on your skin. This is not a fire of destruction, but of transformation. And you have brought offerings. Not burdens to be punished, but patterns to be released back into light and heat. One by one, take them from the bag of your awareness and offer them to the flames. Toss in the heavy sandbags from the museum of yesterday and the workshop of tomorrow. Watch the weight of past regret and future anxiety burn away, becoming nothing but light and warm air. Place the shards of the perfect vase you thought you had to be near the heat. See how the firelight plays on their edges, revealing they are not trash, but the beginning of kintsugi, ready to be joined with gold. Feed the frantic blueprints from the inner foreman to the flames. Watch the rigid lines of control curl and blacken, leaving only ash. Let the single red thread of a recent mistake catch fire. See it become a brief, brilliant flare, a moment of illumination, not ruin. Place the solid iceberg labeled with your most painful self-concept at the fire's edge. Witness it weep, melt, and return to the great ocean of being from which it came. Bury the impatient trowel you used to dig for blooms in the warm sand. You are learning the gardener's patience now. Hand the dog-eared book of your oldest, most limiting story to the flames. Watch the pages containing, "I am not enough," turn to smoke, freeing the plot. Feel the inner auctioneer's gavel dissolve in the heat, its persuasive patter replaced by the simple sound of waves. Offer the chisel you've used to carve yourself into a statue. Feel the relief of no longer having to sculpt. Sit for a long moment, watching the fire burn down to a bed of glowing, pulsating embers. Feel the space this creates. The lightness in your shoulders. The ease in your chest. The quiet, steady hum of simply being here, on this beach, under this sky, with this breath. Now, from the edge of the embers, pick up one thing. Not a burden, but a tool. A single, smooth, warm stone. It fits perfectly in the palm of your hand. This is your practice. It is not complicated. It is this, remember. Remember the feeling of putting the bags down. Remember the question of the weaver. Remember the steadfastness of the lighthouse. Remember the patience of the gardener. This stone is your token, your tactile reminder that you can return to this foundational piece at any time. The fire is now coals. The stars are bright. It is time to go. As you stand and turn to leave, you see it clearly. In the arch of a driftwood branch, in the space between two breaths, in the pause between the crash of waves, the doorway. It is not made of wood or stone. It is made of awareness. It is the threshold of the present moment. And it is always, always open. You don't need a special date, a special place, or a special state of mind. You simply need to stop and step through. From the frantic narrative of time into the spacious alleyway of now. This has been the heart of all our explorations. Peace is not a place you get to. It is a door you walk through, again and again. The tools and practices are simply ways to remember where the door is when you've wandered far into the mental buildings of past and future. So, as our formal time together ends, know this: you are not leaving with a certificate, but with a warm stone and a map to a door you carry within you. The journey continues. It continues in the very next moment you choose presence over distraction, kindness over reactivity, curiosity over judgment. When you wash the dishes, be there fully, that's the temple. When you listen to a friend, listen completely, that's the practice. When you feel lost, feel your feet on the ground, that's coming home. Thank you for your courageous attention. Thank you for your willingness to look, to feel, to put things down. The path of peace is not walked alone, but in the shared recognition that we are all learning to find our way back to the same, ever-present doorway. Take a deep breath. Feel the aliveness in your body. Hear the sounds around you. This is it. This is the threshold. Welcome to Monk's Temple. Welcome home. Welcome to now.